Welcome to Midcard Maniacs. I'm Jay.
And I'm John.
And today's good idea, bad idea. We're taking a look at Raw Underground.
Yeah.
Now let me start with, I'm a huge fan of underground wrestling. Or underground fights, I guess. I watched Kimbo Slice back in the day. I like the shoot style of Ken Shamrock. I love shoot fighting and wrestling. And the fact that Shane McMahon, I guess the commissioner of whatever the hell this is, I think that initially this was a good idea. I think on paper, great idea. Because it has a lot of aspects that I definitely enjoy. However, I think that this is overall just a bad idea, but an intriguing one.
I am with you in the idea that it was good on paper. Just picture Def Jam. Yes, on paper, good idea. WWE has the roster that they could make this a good segment, but in practicality and how it's actually going to come across, it is a bad idea because you can't have this be a Raw segment. It needs to be a standalone. Think of Lucha Underground. If that was just a segment to another promotion, it wouldn't have had the success that it did have. This needs to be a network exclusive. And to have this just in the third hour doesn't have a good feel because you're kind of building storylines with a security guard standing in front of a door that people aren't supposed to enter and giving Shane his TV time. It needs to be a standalone show, something that the WWE Network can offer as an exclusive because you have the wrestlers, you have the talent that you can push in this show, but it shouldn't be a part of Raw. It's very opposite to what Raw is.
And hearing the struggles from Wrestling Observer with Dave Meltzer saying hey, WWE Network is struggling. They've even thought about putting pay-per-views on different networks and all this stuff. They need a bigger draw. Obviously, we've seen stuff like The Last Ride. I've got that 365, which is fantastic, but they don't have a Tough Enough. Maybe Ride Along is doing enough for WWE Network.
They screwed up on Breaking Ground. That was huge potential.
I agree. And maybe this is a build-up to a network exclusive. I think it would be a great way to promote it. It's get people hooked for a couple weeks and say, hey, you want to see more? Go to the network. Because they need to drive more sales, and it would just work better as a standalone thing. Like you mentioned with Lucha Underground, the only reason Lucha Underground worked is because you went in, invested, knowing that it's more like a cinematic movie style wrestling show. You knew that it was gonna cut away to different characters talking about money and talking about the grimy underground wrestling scene. And that's what's so cool about Lucha Underground.
And it's not like WWE couldn't do a more cinematic style and make Raw Underground like that show because they seem to be able to do good cinematic matches. It's just...
But they're about 50-50 on that, if I'm being honest.
You have someone like Shayna Baszler, who is clearly not going to make it on the Raw roster. She's not going to SmackDown, and having her go back to NXT just doesn't make any sense. But having Shayna Baszler be the main eventer of an underground wrestling show, A, it's believable, and B, people will probably tune in to watch this because they'll think that maybe it's not scripted. Maybe this is an actual fight.
That's what's up. That's the entire reason why Raw Underground can succeed if they did it right. Currently, I don't think it's done right. But yes, Shayna Baszler, we know her from her UFC. Obviously, if you know women's wrestling, you know her from the Swole family with Lil Swole, Big Swole. But in WWE, she's presented as the Ronda Rousey. She's this hard-hitting MMA fighter who does holds that you think are totally shooting on people. You think she's actually hurting people when she's smashing Liv Morgan into an elimination chamber pod. She's the perfect example of somebody who could do this well. The same is true with Dexter Lumis. Unfortunately, he is now out with an injury, but he's another person that I think if you want him to be taken seriously, and any of the people from the roster that you want to be taken seriously, put them in this underground shoot style wrestling arena, it could be done well.
One of the big people who I think would be fantastic in this setting is Chad Gable. This is a person who is a former Olympian. He is a amateur wrestling star. He can easily step into here, drop this whole short gimmick, and just throw down. Picture him like David and Goliath style. You have him go against some like big guy, but
Walter,
and he just like takes him down, and it's just actual like amateur wrestling style where he's like putting people in submission, and you believe it. And that's what this needs to be. But a segment on Raw just to make it more edgy after 10 p.m., not gonna work. It is a bad idea.
I definitely agree. I think it's also a bad idea to, after your women's revolution, everyone's super positive about women wrestling, and here you are, throwing a bunch of dancing women in the background, like underground clubs. Like, I get you're trying to go for that aesthetic, but that's a dated way of thinking, especially people who are trying so hard to be progressive. It's a bad look. I think this could be done really well, but it's not currently done well. So I would agree with you. This is a bad idea at the moment. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Like this video. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Midcard Maniacs.